Well, John, fantastic to for us to both be here on the podcast for Fallout Season 1 Darkest Hour. How are you doing?
Great. Finally glad I can finally meet you.
Well, that's it. Yes, we've been keeping in correspondence throughout the project for a long time, but I think this is the first time we've actually ever talked to each other. It's like, oh, he's not British. He's a horrible Brit on extended vacation. He's butchering the English language on a daily basis.
Because obviously, throughout all my different projects, I just speak to people online. Sorry, I'm thinking now, and I think I've only done like a voice chat with one other person for all the projects I've done.
Really? Only one?
Yes.
How many projects have you actually got up on your YouTube channel to date, would you guess? It's a fair few, isn't it?
Yes, it is, but it does also all depend because, like, early on, I did like what I used to call point of view stories, which was a single person just talking, and they were like short and kind of relatively simple to do. And I've stopped them now to actually go and do some more full cast stories. So it's like, do I count the point of views as projects or not? Because they're not on the same quality as what I'm getting done nowadays.
Well, there's certainly definitely personal projects. But I guess, like, yeah, when we're talking about corresponding over Discord, we're like, well, how long have you been branching out into the community, so to speak?
So my very first story that kind of set off all this, I remember releasing it in November 2016. So I came up with the idea around at that time. Interestingly enough, the inspiration, and it's part of the Realm series, which is all medieval fantasy, and the inspiration came from Pokemon. So there's a bit where I was playing Pokemon Emerald,
Yeah.
and do you know about the cloning glitch?
I do, yes. I do remember that glitch from back in the day.
Yeah. Where you kind of save it, and then where you're in a mid-save thing, you turn it off, and you're able to clone Pokemon and items. And I'm there, like, just a kid trying to get through, have every single Pokemon, and in all my PC boxes, I had, like, each Pokemon, like, all the starters, and I was leveling them up to level 100 because I was cloning a bunch of rare candies. And I remember down in Weymouth, Dorset, I'm just there sitting on the bed in the hotel, just like repeatedly pressing the three buttons over and over again, giving this Pokemon a rare candy every single time to level it up to a level 100. And I'm just like, this is boring. Because because it just like you lost the grind and it's like this isn't fun anymore.
Yeah, no,
And that
definitely.
was like the inspiration for the main story where it's this one person. He started off from humble beginnings. He's done this grand magical thing where he's killed this, the evil creature thing. And then it's like, well, now what does he do with his life now that he's done that?
Oh, definitely. So, I suppose after all these different projects you've gone through, you and I have collaborated with a bunch of other phenomenal artists on Fallout Darkest Hour. But I suppose
I actually, so I was going to say, the way you phrase that's quite interesting.
yeah.
Because even though we've worked on several different projects, Fallout was the first one where I met you.
It very much was the first one. In fact, I think that was
Yes.
the first major audition of my own voice acting career, believe it or not. I only started about, what was it? I think we did this 2-3 years ago?
2 years ago. Oh, no, sorry. So I started writing chapter 2 years ago in August while I was making the pilot. And then I started casting for season 1 the following January, February time. So that would have been 2019.
Right, so around January, February 2019. So it was very like a fair chunk ago. So it was only about a year then. So that's fair enough. So but yeah, no, it was one of the first major projects I ever auditioned for. I think I was originally going for the Servatron in that, wasn't I?
Yes, that's originally what you was cast as. Because so with the pilot, and end of the pilot has a bunch of cameos for the characters moving forward, such as Edward. And originally, I was going around to like people I'd worked with before, because since I've worked with them before, they would do the small cameo, and it was highly likely I could get them to come back for the full-on series. But unfortunately, the main guy, he was unable to return, so I had to open it back up to casting. And you was casting Servatron, and I remember the casting call, and I was put right in Edward. He's English. He's not a tough guy. He's not tough as nails. He's more a religious, spiritual person. and 99% of the auditions was American accent, tough as nails.
Yeah, very like gun-ho sort of thing. I think I even came to you with the same thing. You said, "Oh, can you do British?" And I said, I can, but looking at him, I don't know what it was, but I looked at the character portrait and something about his face just says American. But then I don't know, maybe it's the jacket, that leather jacket sort of says that. That's the Fallout style greaser. Rattlesnakes rule. But no, I remember you reached out to me and said, "Oh, you can do Edward." I went, "Oh, that's a major part." I must admit, my heart sank at that moment. I'm like, "Oh, I've never done a project this big before." But no, it was fun.
Because I do remember you were sending me several different variations of his voice. And the
I think
trouble
there
is,
was
though,
3, yeah.
yeah, the trouble
Mm-hmm.
on my end, though, is because I wrote all of season 1 with the other voice actor in mind. So every time I was listening to your things, I'm just there thinking, this isn't Edward. Because, my mind was fixed on this one voice. That one voice is
Yep.
Edward. But obviously, I sent you the message saying, like, at the end of, after editing chapter 2, I'm just like, in my mind, your voice is now Edward. I honestly cannot imagine anyone else. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Thank you very much for that. I suppose where I was going with the initial line of questioning before we had all that connection issues was, obviously, like, everyone has their sort of a first exposure to the Fallout series. Which was yours?
Fallout 4.
Fallout 4. So yeah, Bethesda's take on the original spin. Yeah.
Yes, I had a couple friends like, "Oh, you got to get it," and they're like, "Oh man, you're just gonna love that." And I actually own 3 copies of that game.
Really? Like, across multiple platforms, or?
Yes, it's all justified. So when I originally got it, I got it for PS4,
Mm-hmm.
and then they released it in VR, which obviously I had to buy it. And VR survival mode is kind of what led to the inspiration to doing this series. And the third and final copy I got is because in the VR mode, they don't actually have the DLCs. And the DLC for Far Harbor, I just love. So I went to try and buy the DLC through Steam because, some guy had modded it so you can actually put it in VR. But in order to buy the
Mm-hmm.
DLCs, you had to buy the main copy of the game.
Oh, again.
Yeah. So
So it would have racked up to a 4th.
Oh yeah. Well, no, that would have been the third. So that's
A third,
just
okay, yeah.
So that's just where I waited to the main game was £10. All the DLC you could buy for another £10, and it's like £20 to play Far Harbor in VR. I'm willing to spend that much.
Definitely, yeah.
Yes.
Nothing like a good old Steam summer sale or something like that.
Oh,
to
there's
really
always a
sink your
sale.
teeth into the whole series. There's always a sale somewhere.
Yes.
So, what was there something particular about that Fallout that inspired Darkest Hour, or where did the inspiration for this particular story come from?
It was mainly from playing Fallout 4 VR because you have survival mode, which there's a YouTuber, Many a True Nerd, and he summed it up perfectly. He said the first 20 hours off, no, 20 levels in survival mode is some of the most fun you will ever have. It's where survival mode you have to eat, drink constantly. You got to make sure you get sleep. If you kill enough people, your adrenaline goes up, which does extra damage. All the resources are more scattered, and because you come from a really low point, you're there just making it inch by inch, just trying to build yourself up, and it's so much fun. And that was the main inspiration for Fallout Darkest Hour, because obviously the pilot ends with Annabelle going out into the wasteland with nothing but the clothes on her back. Fallout 4, when you leave, obviously you're at Sanctuary Hills, then you actually meet at Red Rocket, and I was building Red Rocket up as a base, which is kind of why in Darkest Hour, the main base is a Red Rocket station.
Right. Okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Actually, on the notion of the various creatures that we see throughout the Darkest Hour series, we've got the Rad Foxes, obviously, which were, I believe, that was a concept art for Fallout 4, wasn't it? That never made it into the game?
Not that I'm aware of.
Oh, okay. I could have sworn I saw one. I know there, 76 brought us Rad Squirrels and all that, which do get talked about in episode 6, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
Slight spoilers, anyone? Yes.
Originally, there was going to be a Rad Squirrel in episode 2, and this was like before. Like
Mhm.
I was writing it August 2018, before 76 came out, and the basic premise was it was
Yep.
to attack Annabelle before I came up with the tree serpents, because you've heard it with all the music.
That's a bit of an upgrade.
Yeah. Because I originally, obviously with all the music and everything, it's kind of spiritual, which I will get into like the whole like the
Mm-hmm.
reason behind the whole tone, the inspiration for that's like later on. But it was going to be a rad squirrel because it would cut Annabelle's lip in the shape of a cross, so a bit like spiritual thing. But then it changed it to the tree
Right.
serpent because obviously you've got the apple coming down, and obviously whole tempted by the apple kind of thing.
I'll be honest, that symbology actually completely flew over my head, so I learned something today as
Oh,
well.
oh,
So that's
oh! You
great,
want
yeah.
to? Oh, no, no, no! If you want to get to whole symbology, this was like when I was like thinking of it very early on.
Yep.
Pilot Annabelle's home. She leaves it as it's burning, so she's leaving the flaming wreck dressed as a Viking, which has like horns on it. And then, like from that in chapter 2, she accidentally kills the boy, and it's pretty much hell for her. And then it all changes when she falls into the water and like submerged, almost like baptism, and then comes out new, reborn, and then the border collie comes in and saves her.
There we go. So for anyone who was just like sort of listening through the series going, this is a great little spin on Fallout, it's like, no, sorry, you got tricked into, following around, Norse mythology and a bunch of other things. It's actually very, very much deeper. That completely flew over my head, so that's great.
There's not a lot of deep stuff to it. Like the thing I just described, that's like the main thing I was coming up with. And there's not a lot of Norse mythology. Like there's Vikings in it, but mainly because they're just raiders, just under a different name.
Oh, for sure. But the moment you sort of went Vikings, giant serpent, and all that, I'm like, wait, is the serpent supposed to be your Gondor? Or, so I'm probably butchering that name, the world serpent. I'm like, ooh.
No, none of that, none of that. It was literally the serpent came from obviously the serpent tempting with the apple,
Right.
and that evolved into the actual tree serpent, which you wanted a great beast, and that's kind of terrifying because there's a bunch of animals out there that use something as tempting you. So like you've got like from the artwork, you've got the little weak little tree, and you're like, oh, it's just a tree, it's got an apple on there, but then just to have the ground beneath you like erupting, and then that creature just coming out.
I think if I'm not sure how much of your viewer base comes from Australia, but yeah, I think we've got some of the most deadly snakes in the world. If we had ones that burrowed and pretended to be fruit trees, I'm sure we wouldn't still be here.
Because I was going to say that there's a bit in chapter 7, which again you play Erwin, who comes from Australia, and there's just the bits where he's like listing off different creatures, and I wanted to have one proper massive creature because like the creatures in Fallout, you've got like the low level stuff, and then they just get more and more powerful. And it was the Salt Dial.
I could be wrong, but I could have sworn that was actually episode 6. There's a flashback to the docks. No, 7?
No, episode 5.
Oh, 5.
Episode 5. Yep. Yeah, 5 is the flashback to the docks. And he talks about the Salt Dial, which is a massive crocodile to the point where its back just looks like land.
Like an island.
And you just go walking out on there. Yeah. And it was kind of designed to be so massive where if it wanted to, it could swim away from Australia to another country.
I am actually looking forward to when that particular chapter releases, because there haven't been many comments on the video so far, but heaven forfend, we're going to get around to that point. People are like, okay, sorry, can we get a translation? What is a bitzer? What is what is this? And what does he mean by red and brown? It's like, trust me, I think you and I had that discussion when you sent me the lines for Erwin. I said, how Aussie do you want this? And you're like, understandable Occanese, please. I'm like, okay.
Because we came up with like different variations of Australian. There was English Australian, which was the basic Australian accent that you could understand, and then there's Australian, which is what Owen is.
Well, that was it. Looking at it,
and I remember I had the script. Yeah, I had the script. I remember the lines, and the first time I'm there listening to it, like trying to match up my script to the things he's saying, just like really paying attention. And it's like one of the greatest things. I do truly love it.
It's actually definitely one of my favorite parts too, because I looked at the original script, and you're right, you wrote a very British Australian, we call that a high accent here. There's sort of 3 levels, and anyone who has a high accent usually, comes from an older generation. I'm like, well, if this character is based off, our beloved icon of Steve Irwin, he was definitely more.
I wouldn't say based off, more inspiration.
Oh, definitely an inspiration. Yes. So
yeah, because the character Irwin, he is a bit of a dick.
Oh, he's very different. Very different. Yeah, no, inspired is definitely a better word.
And I'm not saying Steve Irwin is. I'm like, he's not a dick. He's a lovely person. It's just the character is a bit of a dick. It's the fact I wanted someone who was, going after, wanting to live life, get creatures, and he's Australian. And I thought, oh wait, Steve Irwin.
No, well, that's actually, yeah.
Okay, the character's going to be called Irwin.
That's definitely what I meant. Is that it's a parody of it, because when people think of the Outback Aussie, Steve Irwin, Crocodile Dundee, you've all rolled those into one, and then had him scull one too many tinnies. He's just dealing with the hangover because he's a bit of a dick.
There was one person I heard speaking about Steve Irwin, and he goes, "Can you imagine being the guidance counselor at school? So, what do you want to be when you grow up?" "I want to go up to the most dangerous creatures and poke them with a stick."
And then after I've done that, home them, feed them, love them, defend their natural habitats. It all panned out.
Yes.
Anyway, we got so far off track where I was originally going with the creature
dialogue.
Yeah,
we started with chapter 2, then we jumped to chapter 5. It's all over the place.
It was around chapter 4. There's a mention of a creature called a tunneler, which is like this little mutant worm.
It wasn't just a mention. You do see it. They do start popping out.
And I couldn't help but think to myself, like, is this a reference to that old movie Tremors?
So basically, it wasn't. And then when I was posting the artwork on the Discord channel, Jeff Moon, who plays Bradley, he mentioned it, and I'm like, oh, well, I guess it is now. Like, if they ever pop up again, I've got to rewatch the movie and see what references I can put in.
References in the eye of the beholder. If someone comes along and goes, "Wow, that was such an amazing narrative tool you used there," you go, "Yeah, that's totally it. Wasn't an accident."
Yeah, it's planned. Because some things people don't pick up on. Like you said, you didn't pick up on the symbolism in chapter 2 with the whole fire, baptism, water.
No, and I'm quite surprised at that. Usually I see that sort of stuff. Maybe it's because I'm more of a visual sort of person. But yeah, coming through audio, it just went over my head. But I'd be happy to go back and listen to the whole thing now.
Yeah, because that's where you get the narrator in.
Oh, can we, speaking of which, I'm struggling to remember his name. Who is our narrator? Because, my goodness, the timbre in his voice. Fantastic.
He is Lucas Webley.
Lucas Webley. Well, a shout out to Lucas, and definitely go follow his work, because I could listen to that man all day.
Which he's... So obviously, I've worked with people before.
Mm-hmm.
Lucas Webley, he did a couple point of views on my stuff. And then, because he was so well at doing, different voices, he could really do a whole range of stuff. When I was doing my Silent Howl thing, I had a few small roles, and I'm like, "Hey buddy, could you voice these? Because you can do a range of characters, you could voice them all and you don't sound the same." Which he signed up for. And I remember him saying he's looking at my work and he's like, "I have to say you're extremely prolific." And I instantly went to Google what prolific meant. For anyone who doesn't know, it's basically prolific is where you work on a range of tasks and get them all done.
Yeah, very broad. And well, I have to say, if your YouTube channel is anything to go by, John, yes, prolific is definitely the word to use. So many projects.
I do like how Lucas does keep coming back and working with me. Because on Casting Cool Club, which is where I get all my voice actors from, he auditions for stuff where the payment is $200, and then he auditions for stuff where the payment is $0. That's one of the things I love, where it's not about the money, it's all about the projects.
That's it.
And like I said, he's come back and he's done other stuff for me. He voiced Dracula in Monster Island.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I'll have to go check that one out,
Mhm.
actually. I've not been through most of the back catalogue yet. But there's definitely a range of projects to go through. And on that notion, too...
Yeah, like it's...
Oh, sorry, mate, you go.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, because the projects, when I go back over them, it's mostly the Realm stories, where they're all in the same universe kind of thing. Then I've got my Silent How animation. There's been a few little side stories like Monster Island, but it's only now that I'm working on more franchises in a such.
Mm-hmm. Would you say there's do you have like a writing process you go through to come up with these stories, or are they just things that just branch out of your head and you just run with them and see where they go?
It's all like just different ideas, concepts, and then I just have them in my head, playing with the ideas until I get like something half decent. And normally I just write down like an outline of what the story would be. Like I've got a few outlines all written down, and it's like, oh, I'll get around to writing them one day, because it could start from like the smallest thing. Like I've got one story which it's a very rough outline. There's things that have got to be tweaked on, and the whole inspiration from it came from one line in the Man of Steel movie. Not really one line, just a couple of lines. It's the bit with where Kal-El has the codex, and you've got General Zod saying, if you destroy that, you destroy all of Krypton. And Kal-El just says, Krypton had its chance.
Ooh, that is a good line. A pinnacle moment of that film.
Yes, and just from that line, I've got like a little story just based off it.
And that's it. I think that's why I love voice acting and you know, the writing that people like yourself do in general, is that there's just this energy that can come from something so simple. You can hear one line, be it from Superman or Mark Hamill, or even perhaps if someone's inspired by Darkest Hour. Fantastic, we've done our job. But, you know, it can spawn this whole idea where you're like, man, that inspires me to tell my own story. Fantastic. Get out there, tell those stories. I'm always of the impression that there's never anything such thing as a bad idea. I think you even just said it then, John, that you know you get a small idea and you sort of
there's
write
bad
it down.
Executions.
That's it. There's definitely bad executions, but it's like my grandmother used to have a saying of like, you will never burn a cake the same way twice, unless you have a very peculiar oven. But the point is, like, you know, we all make mistakes. You know, cooking is a process, and same thing with imagination. It's a muscle. You have to use it, work on it, and eventually you get quicker at these things.
Because just because it worked once before doesn't mean it works again. Because like
true,
you know,
yeah.
you've got the original Ghostbusters movie, and then since then there's been like a bunch of other movies where as soon as like someone points out to you, oh, it's trying to be like a new Ghostbusters, you finally see it. Like there's the movie Evolution, if you ever saw that.
I have actually seen that. I guarantee there's a couple of people who are listening just going, I remember that movie.
Yeah. But like now that I mentioned it, you do see, oh, I see how that was meant to be a new Ghostbusters, a group of experts getting together to fight this evolution thread. And then you had the movie with Ben Stiller, The Watch, a group of people gathering together, and the threat was aliens.
And that's it. These things are they're reciprocal, but
like every 10 years they're trying to create this new version of Ghostbusters.
And you know what, though? I think that's to say, though, we're not saying that trying to create a new version of Ghostbusters is a bad thing. That's how the creative process works. It's the execution.
It's inspiration.
Yeah. I think there's an old saying regarding that. It's, don't strive for originality. It's already been done. But strive for authenticity. Change enough. Make it your own. Focus on a different aspect of the story and make it work.
The original Alien movie, do you know what like the inspiration behind that was?
Oh, was that with an interview with H.R. Geiger? He actually mentioned where he was getting all these weird ideas from, but I don't actually remember off the top of my head. No, it's been a while.
So the inspiration, and I got told a story which I'm not sure it's true, but the story I got told was they got the funding for the movie with 3 words, and the 3 words was just Jaws in space.
Dun 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 dun
Which
dun.
I'm not sure if that story is true, but clearly that was the inspiration for Aliens. It's basically Jaws, but in
And you know
space.
what? I'd believe that. Jaws hit
Yeah.
such a box office high during its release that I reckon any executive that was told that we can reskin this, we can spend, a modest budget and have just as big a blockbuster, I reckon someone would have jumped on that opportunity immediately.
Hmm.
Absolutely immediately. Well, anyway, on the
All
notion...
about chasing trends.
That's it. Well, on the notion of, various scene compilations, heaven forfend we get to play favorites, but is there a scene in episode 1 through 6 where you're like, you know what, I didn't expect that to turn out as well as it did, and it's been a bit more impactful for you than you thought it would be on paper?
Oh, see, the trouble is though, there's so many. As soon as you ask which one, my brain just gets overloaded
Right.
trying to
It's like
think of
it's
every
like
single
that's a
scene.
big book, man. You got to narrow it down.
Yes, I mean one that stands out mainly because it was early on in chapter 2, and I basically took a copy of it with the music and just exported that one little scene. So because I exported it, that one kind of like stayed with me in a
Because it was
sense.
like a proof of
It's
concept.
the
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I can
and that
understand
was the
that.
scene with Edward and the group, and they're at Catherine's Cafe with your Servatron, and it's where the Vikings come in, and they're pinned down. Like Edward has 4 bullets, I believe,
Yeah, 4 bullets.
and it's just them stuck in that situation.
I know that scene sticks out for me from a technical perspective because that was back when I had my old ISK, and this microphone was a bargain bin basement buy. I already mentioned it earlier when we had our initial technical difficulties, but we dropped in and out here. But
Yeah,
for anyone who doesn't know, an ISK microphone is basically a bargain bin branding of a Rode microphone. I don't recommend them. I mean, actually, are we allowed to do that on YouTube? Just like bag out brands? Probably not. We'll cut that out. We're moving on though. But yes,
it's the microphone you get when you're thinking about voice acting and you don't want to put too much money into it.
Well, no. I'd argue it's the microphone you
No?
get when you haven't done enough research.
Oh,
If
okay.
I would recommend anyone, it would, like, now knowing what I know, it would be the AT2020 or the AT2035. Both of those come in USB and XLR varieties, and they are fantastic little starters. But anyway, no, the reason it comes to mind is because I remember you messaged me back and you went, "Oh, I don't know if you missed it in the script or whether it was an addition, but Edward needs to whisper his shot count." But unfortunately, this microphone, its pickup
It
range...
was a change.
That was a change, yeah. But the microphone's pickup range is terrible.
Yeah, mainly because you just said it, and I wanted it to come off more as if he's saying it just to himself.
Yep.
Because he's trying to make sure I know exactly how many bullets I have left. So it's a bit where he's just like counting them off just to himself.
I'm pretty sure, other than... I think there's one whisper, but other than that, I think you ended up cutting it. And I'm wondering if it might have been because it was a bit too quiet, because I know the pickup range on that microphone was, a bit sketchy. So when trying to whisper, it's like you have to really crank it up, and then all you're getting is gain. So
Yeah.
it didn't really work, which is unfortunate.
What about you? Is there any scenes you enjoyed?
Well, look, there is one scene that I'm looking forward to seeing come to light, but I feel that we can't talk about it in this episode because season...
I think that could easily segue onto our next question.
That's it. Season 1
Yes.
was comprised of, 1 to 6 episodes, and there is a 7th, a secret episode that has yet to be released. That you decided to cut out because...
I wouldn't say yet to be released.
Oh,
It's still
okay.
got to be made. So basically, season 1 was going to be chapters 1 to 6, and I could never really get it going, so I decided, like most TV shows, they make a pilot. So I'm like, okay, that's what I do. I do the first episode as a pilot, and then once I've released that will give me the push to make season 1, which is what happened. And during production, I was working out season 2 and like what would be involved. And season 2 will be more episodes. And then I thought, hey, what if I put an episode chapter 7 at the end of season 1? So then season 2 will have just like one episode less to make it. And then that episode would kind of set up next season. But then while I was going over them, like some of my favorite TV shows is when each seasons are just complete At the very end, it like just bookmarks it off, and it's like that could be the ending. So chapter 7 all got recorded but never edited because I just decided I'll leave that for season 2.
And I think it really does round out well. It was a good decision. I'm wondering though if
because
I'm wondering.
I was just going to say, because chapter 7, you've read it, and that does just really set up this is what season 2 is. And chapter 6 at the moment is basically a happy ending of sorts. You could end the whole series there.
Yeah, happy ending? Question mark. It's like you could end it there.
I would say it's a happy ending. I mean, Annabelle and the group, it's them having dinner. And, I had that little thing set up where it's in Red Rocket, the whole cabinet that's locked. And then just at the end, she finally gets the key, opens it, and it's like, what's inside? A deck of cards.
I think knowing that there is potentially, and will be, because we've just confirmed it, there is a 7th episode, that there's a season 2, I look at the whole scenario and I go, this is a powder keg, and it just needs a match. Because I remember reading through, I think it was chapter 4 about where I realized, maybe it was chapter 3. It all blurs together after a bit.
It was not chapter 4 because you're not in chapter 4.
Oh no, I'm not.
Chapter
okay,
would
have been chapter 3 then.
Yeah,
but it's a discussion that the back and forth between Edward and Bradley that comes off in a comradic sense, but at the same time, I think it all culminates in my favorite moment comes from the first episode of season 2, and I won't spoil it for anyone, but there is a dynamic moment I can't.
I know the
wait
scene.
to
I know
hear,
the scene. Yeah,
and I hope it's turned out as well as I think it has. But
because like when I'm writing, and like most people, there's kind of like key events you want, and that was really a key event. So I'm like, okay, I've got to have that, and you just have everything kind of setting it up.
After that key event goes off, it makes me look back to that banter in episode 2 and 3, and I just go, Edward, my friend.
What was the banter?
The base.
I'm trying to.
Sorry, when I say banter, it wasn't friendly. It was Bradley is mad
because
he's lost both of his daughters. Ghost is on a warpath. In fact, he loses his first daughter in episode 1. Episode 2, he immediately loses his second daughter, and it's this moment in episode 7 that makes me go, man, Edward, nah, man, no. You're not a...
Like, because bear in mind, like, there's a bit in chapter 3, I think, and it's the bit where Edward is talking to Billy, and Edward has kind of written Bradley off. Because,
like
he came over to start a new life. Both his daughters are dead. He's like, he's not going to survive this.
He's not going to snap. He's going to break, is the word.
Yeah, and there's the bit where, like the Vikings do attack, not ghosts, but Harolds, and they just run to the shops, and you do have Bradley, who just stops, which is a moment I think of him just like running, and then like he just realizes, why am I doing this? Why am I trying to survive?
Yep. But no, I think that moment in episode 7 is definitely my favorite because it paints everything in the previous 6 episodes in a new light that you can go back and watch.
You're kind of hyping it up a bit too much.
Yeah?
I mean,
it might just be my impression
kind
of it.
Well, no, it's more the fact that like season 1 took almost 2 years to make, and season 2 is going to have more chapters. So people's got to like listen to this, like, oh my god, I can't wait for chapter 7, and then it's like 2 years later.
Yeah. Well, I was about to say, maybe
this is
the point where we step in true YouTube content creator fashion and go, hey guys, Patreon. No promises, that's up to John.
Yeah. I have got a Patreon, but it's like, it's just where Patreon kind of changed some of their things. Mm-hmm. It happened like about a year ago. They kind of basically changed their process, and their new process, any new creators wouldn't get the same benefits. So it's pretty much a bunch of people, including myself, signed up to Patreon before the change so we could still get those previous benefits. So it's one of the things where I've got Patreon and it's there and as such, but I'm still going to be creating content regardless.
Oh, that's good then. All right, well, we'll narrow. We've got an easier question. We can narrow this one down because there's only 6 of them. But through the midway point of each episode and at the end credits, there are some original songs written by various members of the community, which are all fantastic. But I'm wondering if you have...
Are you going to ask me which one's my favourite?
Yeah, do you have a particular particular one that you're like, this is a good song? He's like, once again, you can't make me choose between my children.
No, so I do have one which I do just love as a song, but then each of them I kind of have I like see them in a certain aspect. So like chapter 2, you've got
Wasteland Spirits.
Wasteland Spirit,
Yep.
yes, which that was written, sung, and performed by Angus Townsley, who does the voice of the male Vikings, and he actually sent that to me while I was still making the pilot. And I
Right.
was tempted to use it as the song for the pilot episode. The only reason I decided against it was because the song is American. It's all about Fallout in America, and this is British, which I was like, I probably shouldn't have that as the main song,
Yeah.
which is why I kind of use it in chapter 2, because near the end, it's Bradley with a big reveal that he was a gunner, who's obviously a thing from Fallout 4, and it's a British thing, so that song kind of works in there.
Sort of like
And then
his
I've
theme
got,
song. Yeah. That was good.
Kind of, I
Yeah.
suppose.
That reveal song.
And then you've got chapter 3 with Here Comes the Fallout, and that one stands out to me mainly because it was sung by someone, and then I got one of my music composers, and he took the thing and kind of cut it up in a sense. So he composed all the music to it.
That'd be Jonathan sings and Jerome's the composer. Is that right?
Yes, that's the way around.
Yep.
Which Jerome, he's done composing work for several of my audiobooks. He is just truly amazing. And literally, so he kind of cut it up a bit so there's pauses just to have his melody play, and hearing it from just that one person just singing the song to the full thing, that's really cool.
It is a very hauntingly beautiful song in its own right. Yeah.
And then I do like Out of Phase mainly because it's a bit jarring, and it works as the ending.
That was the one for episode 6, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yes, because I'm trying to remember some of the lyrics now, but it's all falling out of my head. Do you love me with my other face? Where it's like two sides of personality, which with everything they've gone through, I feel like it kind of works. And I feel a bit like it works with Ghost, because in that one, he gets injected with the drug Flash, and you get a flashback of a sense, which obviously parallels Annabelle's story. And it's the bit where he started off as just a simple farmer, and now he's like one of the leaders of a Viking clan. So that song works really well with him. But out of the songs, the one I really do like is Chapters 4.
Raiders of the Waste.
I cannot remember the name. That's it, Raiders of the Waste.
Sam Cooke, correct? Gave us that one? Yes.
And we kind of set it up where I have got another song by him.
Ooh.
And we kind of set it up where there's the character Julius Rockwell. And, he's a character who was in America. He's now come over to England, and he sent the song off to Buddy. So it's an original song created by a character in the Fallout world, and that character's out there somewhere.
Will we potentially be seeing any of him in season 2?
It depends. I mean, if the person did the song is like, oh yeah, I'd love to appear in it, then yeah, I'll find him a role in there. But if it's something where, if he's no longer into voice acting, he doesn't want to return, then the character won't pop up again. I think some roles you can recast, some you can't.
I think the one that stood out to me, not necessarily as my favorite, but just, I don't know, something about the way it's done strikes me as I almost thought it was a song from the real world, but I believe it's also a community-made one, is Don't Stop Loving Like You Do in episode 5.
Yep, that was chapter 5.
Yeah, that's a community-created one as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because putting the songs in there, I kind of try and have a reason. And with that one, you got Buddy, and he's talking about losing a friend, and he's like, oh, what if it's that person who dies, and it's his favorite song? And it's just a love song. I just thought, I'm trying to think of the word. Where two things are just polar opposites, and yet they're just connected.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely what made it stand out so much as compared to
Mm.
the setting and the story we've had so far. Here's this rather loving and tender song set to the background of, but
The
by
only
episode
thing
5,
I
some things have
feel
happened.
slightly,
Mm.
yeah, because the only thing I feel slightly guilty about that song is because obviously all the songs are great, and I've done it so like Gilbert wakes up and he just turns it off because at a certain point the song has to be turned off, and he's like, "Oh, I hate that song." And I do feel slightly guilty because it's not a bad song, and I don't want the composer to think, hear that and be like, "Oh, is it a bad song?"
No, he's just a crotchety
No.
character.
Yeah, he's a grumpy ghoul.
I mean, he wakes up, he sees a corgi, and he goes, "I don't like that dog." I mean, that just tells you everything you need to know. He's a
Oh
very
no, he
grouchy
hates
man.
dogs. Like, there's a reason for it. Because a lot of the stuff I do have like planned out, like little ideas, just writing down backstories and all that stuff.
I think the one that definitely it really caught me, and I sent you a message about it on Discord the moment you released episode 2 to the voice actors. I'm like, guys, check it out. Was Wasteland Spirit. I was like, this song is a real banger. I don't know what it is, but it's just, oh, it's
It's
great.
upbeat.
It is, and it's fantastically well done.
Hmm.
So, to Mr. Angus,
And it's
done
a
well.
song you can kind of imagine like in that world, like at a bar, and just a guy with a guitar could just be playing it, and you'll have a bunch of like drunk people able to sing along to it.
I'm not musically inclined, so I can't comment on what makes it. Like, is it the key? Like, I'm sure like Angus is gonna log into the comment section and be like, "Oh man, no, it's not the key." But something about how the beat of how that song is sung, I'm like, this can work in almost any style, and it comes across as a
Oh
bit of a
god, yeah.
country tune, but I could definitely see it being done in that 1930s to 50s like swinger croon style that predominates all the music that comes from the Fallout series. Like, so it really works. It's quite good.
While we're on the subject of music,
Yes.
and I do want to know your thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think of the actual soundtrack behind the season?
The actual soundtrack is very stellar, completely stellar. I think my only issue surrounding it has nothing to do with the music itself, because the music at times sets so much of a tone, but also at the right times you
Hmm.
don't quite notice it's there, but it's subtly just waiting in the background, circling. But it's you'll always be your own harshest critic. But I hear some of my own early recordings, particularly from chapter 2 to 3, and I'm like, oh, that is so.
And once you hear the music and you're like, I wish I'd done it slightly different.
I not only do I wish I'd done it slightly different, but it's like, oh, that audio is so quiet. I wish I'd leveled that a bit more to bring myself up a bit, because the certain keys in the music, due to where my voice sits in the register, I'm getting overpowered by like a cello or whatever's being used. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I needed to give a bit more oomph. But
Just for
yeah, no.
credit's sake, the composer music is done by Megan Rose Scott, and she is just fantastic.
Oh,
Like, just pick a random chapter, listen to a random point, and it would just be fantastic.
I think I look forward to hearing what she comes up with for season 2, because it's been absolutely phenomenal. And it's criminal that I haven't seen her name just plastered all over Twitter at this point, because it's really well done.
Because one of the main inspirations for like the tone and direction of the series is a TV show called The Leftovers,
Mm-hmm.
which it's fantastic. If you haven't seen it, go watch it.
I've not actually heard of it. Is that
It's
air in
where
Britain or
America,
America?
HBO.
Okay, I've never heard of it.
Yeah, they ran for 3 seasons and they finished it. So the first season was based on the novel, and
Right.
they got the author on board helping them. But the main showrunner is Damien Lindelof, who is just fantastic. He did TV show Lost, which I love. He did Leftovers, which I'm talking about right now, and he's recently done the TV show Watchmen.
I've actually yet to watch the TV show, but I hear good things about the composition.
Yes, yeah, it's amazing. But he's also done Leftovers, which the second season, for me, is just a masterpiece. The basic concept of The Leftovers is 2% of the population just disappears, and the whole show is just focused on life after. It's not about what happens to those people. It's an analogy of death. So it's all about like what happens after, how do these people cope? And like I said, second season I just love. It's not religious because the people disappearing, it might not be an act of God, it could just be a random event, but it's very spiritual, which is the tone I kind of wanted to take this.
Mm-hmm.
And I showed her some of the music from the leftovers, and it's like, okay, so I don't want you to copy it because I don't want to just give the music and I want this. But I showed her the music, just going, this is like the tone, the style, to give her the direction to go in, which she really did a great job. Oh, and by the way, season 3 of The Leftovers, they actually traveled to Australia.
Fantastic.
Yes, and there's one episode, and I just love its title. The title's called Crazy White Fella Thinking.
Sorry, run that one by me again.
Crazy White Fella Thinking.
I'm guessing, judging by that particular turn of phrase, they must be in Sydney.
Yes.
Yep, that's a very popular saying down here.
I don't want to say I don't want to say too much because it's a show you should definitely watch, and there's a lot of inspiration taken from that show and added into this.
Well, speaking of inspiration and how it all culminates, I know we're here to talk about the Fallout series Darkest Hour in general, but are there any other projects in the works that we should be keeping an eye out for? What's next?
So I have got an outline for this year, which I've released online, and the third and final season of Silent Howl will be released. So, it's the final season, it's the ending. So that's something to watch out for. You've got a few projects I've got in the works to be coming out kind of later this year and continuing next year, because I've got some DC stories which I'm trying to do. We're building my own little DC universe, and I've got the first one, which The Flash.
Yeah, we've finished recording for that at the moment, I believe.
Oh yeah, that's it's all edited. It's got music. I'm just waiting on artwork, and since the earliest release slot is December, that's plenty of time to let my artists do their thing. Yeah. I'm not there I need this by this rush deadline.
I need pictures of the Flash.
Yeah, and then a few projects next year, and then I've got ideas for Fallout Season 2, which I need to get round to writing.
Well, we've got Chapter 7 down pat, so hopefully Chapter 8 is just as thrilling, and we'll see where that takes us.
I will say, for Season 2, the structure is different.
Oh? Can you elaborate on that without spoiling too much, or...?
It's more the fact how much I want to give away.
Yeah, I believe you and I have had a personal conversation of what you mean by that, but that's not my place to mention.
See, that's the thing. I've got so many ideas, and it's how much do people actually know? Because obviously I've spoken to you about a few stuff going forward, but okay, so this is the real heavy hitting stuff, which you're probably shocked by. But I've got a concept for an episode I really want to do, and before I can do that, I need to do all the setup. So it's okay, in order for that happen, this will happen. This will Season 2 will have to be this. Season 3 will have to be this. And that episode I really want to get to. The earliest I can do it would be Season 5.
Really? That far out?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I guess that's just a bit of foreshadowing there back on, I think it was episode 6, where Ghost just stands up and starts lining up the dominoes.
Yeah, which, like I said, each season I'm trying to make them stand alone, but if I've got ideas of the future, I can just lay some seeds. Season 1 is very standalone in how everything is, in a sense, because some things get set up and then paid off later. In Chapter 3, you've got a few scenes, that's the introduction to Tooth and Claw, and obviously Claw comes back later on in chapter 6, and he kind of saves the day in a sense, where he creates a scene, a distraction. Chapter 3 also includes where Annabelle finds the video footage of the weird lizard creatures, and then there's also the references Buddy makes to people disappearing. Then in chapter 4, you've got the introduction of Church, and they kind of all play together. And then in chapter 6, there's like the lone scene of Church, Professor Thursday, and Irwin. And that's kind of the explanation for it all.
Everything that's happened up to that point. Actually, on the notion of Claw, he stands out to me a fair bit. Was that a reference at all back to Fallout 1, or am I just reading too much into things?
As far as I'm aware, no. It's the reference is just the saying tooth and claw.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Because to me, it
you got that reference.
Struck me as a name. There was a death claw that you could encounter, a named one called Claw, and it was known throughout the Waste. And I was kind of like, oh, could it? But no, just to play on words.
I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this, but I've only played Fallout 4 and Fallout 76.
Stay your hands in the comments, people. I've already had to go over Discord.
Yeah. So I tried playing Fallout 3, but I got it on Steam, and, it does not work. You cannot load the game. I did try New Vegas a couple times, but the walk-in is so slow. There's no run mode, and I'm just like, I'm good.
Yeah.
I've seen a few videos from the YouTuber Many a True Nerd, so I use him as a base of sense where I can kind of watch his stuff to understand the world better and get more knowledge.
Those are some very well put together videos. If you haven't seen them, by the way.
Oh god, yes.
In depth.
If there's one video I got to point out is his Fallout 76 and how to fix it. Because he does talk about how everyone complains about bugs, the server crashing, and he's like, but that's in every single Fallout game. So
why stop
and he actually
Fallout?
goes into detail.
Bethesda.
Yeah. And here's the thing though, I got 76 on PS4 and it ran just fine. A lot of the problems come from PCs where, a person might not have a powerful enough PC, which is the reason why it crashes.
Or various
and he just goes into in-depth. Right, yeah. And he just goes into in-depth for 2.5 hours talking about little things that he would change, and he actually comes up with so many massive and cool ideas.
I'm not shocked at that. I mean, we are talking about someone who just dedicates so much time. There is a backlog of videos there just detailing a lot of Fallout lore. And I mean a lot. There's things in there that are only mildly referenced on terminals somewhere, on the other corner of the map in Fallout 1. And he's like, that pertains to this. And you're like, slow down. No, fantastic. Well, John, I think I've put you on the spot for long enough. Those are all the questions I sort of had. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on? You made a mention about the music at the start. Was there anything else you wanted to add on to that?
About the what?
About the composition, the music. You said we'll get back to that, but did we already sort of cover everything you wanted to say about the music?
Yeah, it's pretty much the inspiration came from the TV show Leftovers.
Right, yep. Fair enough.
Yeah. But I am curious, what was your thoughts on, the finished piece? Because obviously, voice actor, you get the script, you submit your lines, end of. At no point do you hear any of the other, voice actor people, unless you go onto the audition page and see who was cast, but then you're just getting a short snippet. You don't really see how it's edited together, you don't get the music. You literally get the script, submit your lines, and then you've got the finished piece.
I will say that I quite like the finished piece. It has a bit of a soft spot in my heart because, like we mentioned earlier in the podcast, it was one of the first major things that I sort of went and auditioned for when I was huddled under the stairs in a Harry Potter style sound booth, and to hear it finally come out and come to life is fantastic. And I must say, credit where it's due, John. I believe this project, even though you're like, oh, it took 2 years to come out, it's taking this long to come out. I'm like, it's actually probably one of the quickest turnarounds I've ever been a part of. There are projects that I auditioned for after Darkest Hour that still have not seen the light of day, and as far as I'm aware, may never see the light of day. So, it's definitely a testament to the work ethic of yourself and all of our lovely cast and composers for it to all come together like this. But no, I thought it was great. As for not hearing other actors until it was released, I think that is definitely one of the shames of the internet age we live in. We're able to collaborate with so many people from around the world, get so many different voices and perspectives and writings and stories. But unfortunately, many of us being in different time zones, we rarely get the time to sort of meet up and do a live read. I think that sort of thing can really help bring a project to a different level. I've been part of a couple of live reads over the time, and just there's an energy and electricity that you just get in the chat room that's just fantastic. But
Oh
not
yeah,
all
I mean,
projects can
like
have that.
you could, yeah, because you could have a like a scene and the actual wording's fairly basic, but then you get someone to actually voice it, and it just really brings it to a whole new level.
Well, that's it. It changes. Bradley actually
Yeah.
shocks me the most. Phenomenal performance there. But I read over the couple of lines, and I took the casual swearing as just to sort of be like, blowing people off. But then again, that sort of language is quite casual here in Australia, depending on where you are. But
Yes.
but to hear just how gruff and violent he is, I'm like, whoa! I completely misread this character.
Where he just has the anger under the surface,
Yeah, exactly.
which is justified for the character.
Very justified given what happens. And then, of course, at the end, you figure out that he's actually a gunner. So you're like, oh, I see. This is compound interest of anger.
And because you get the Chapter 5 flashback scene where, it's Grace and Olivia again, which is kind of a gut punch because they're just going to die. And there's like a little vague mention of, what was it? Like Jodie, who they referred to as their stepmom. And apparently, she just walked out on them in the middle of the night.
Yeah, just gone.
Which, not the actual mum, but that would have been his girlfriend had just left him.
Yeah.
So, even before he came over and lost his daughters, he had still gone through some stuff.
Not to mention, the whole background that we don't get fully spelled out, but who knows, we might touch on in season 2 that he was a gunner. So how did that all go? The leaving process. There's obviously a lot to Bradley we've yet to find out, and I think it comes through a lot for his character, which is phenomenal. Well, yeah. Reflecting back on it from the voice actor perspective, I think it's a good thing to wait a while to have that gap between voicing the project and getting it, because I've said it once and I'll say it 1,000,001 times because I am my own worst critic, and I think a lot of people are. In fact, how many conversations have we had, John, where I'm like, oh, is the audio okay? Is too loud, too quiet? and
I'm just like, yeah, it's fine.
It's fine. Yeah, don't worry about it.
Because I'm not a voice actor, so when people get into I can EQ the levels and all this stuff, and I'm just like, sure.
I remember when I swapped out for my new mic.
As long as it's good audio, that's all I care.
I swapped out for my new mic. I'm like, oh, it makes a difference. You're like, I can't hear it. I don't know what you're talking about. You're crazy.
Yeah.
But that's exactly it.
I mean, yeah, because you're trained into listening to all this stuff,
Yep.
it stands out to you. But me, I'm just looks exactly the same.
There is a beautifully hilarious progression from chapter 2 through to chapter 6. If you listen very closely, I'm sure there's some audio files in the viewership. You can hear this change in not only my tonality but the quality of the recording, and the volume definitely goes up as well. So I don't know, it's been a journey and it's been a fantastic one, and I'm just watching it all come together, and once again I'm just blown away by that composition. I
was gonna ask you if there was any performances that really stood out to you or favorite characters, but I get the sense from what you spoke about a moment ago, it's probably Bradley.
Well, actually, no. My favorite character isn't actually Bradley.
Ooh.
I like the dynamic between Edward and Bradley, but I think
because they're the two sides of the same coin in a sense.
Oh, that's it. And to me, and it just keeps harking back to that episode 7. I'm not allowed to spoil, but I'm like, when you say two sides of the same coin, you're very much correct, and we're not trying to say
Yeah.
anything there. It's more from, I guess, a duality of morality.
It's where they've both
Yeah.
both gone through stuff, and it's just they're handling it in two separate ways.
Edward definitely has this, I wouldn't call it a high and mighty attitude about him, but he definitely, that reverence comes from somewhere, and you'll find out where, and it's just kind of like, wow. Yeah, wow, okay.
Okay. Yeah,
But,
because let's be honest, if Edward started to like all the stuff that's happened to him and just decided like look at it negatively, have an attitude, he would be Bradley.
I think he would. In fact, if anything, I look back on it and I think, Edward, if we would really point fingers here, I'd say you are directly responsible for Bradley's hardship in a way.
Well, that's the way you look at it, because like even though Edward isn't an angry person, like you wouldn't think of him as peaceful because it's the Fallout world. You kill people, like he's killed Vikings, which he brought. Like he doesn't traumatize over anything because that's life in the world. It's kill or be killed, and he's just put in the situations like, okay, got to kill the Viking. Done. It's not even talked about.
I think in a beautiful way, though, it starts to unfold that it's like he might take that to a bit of an extreme. Just being able to compartmentalize things.
Yeah, because the other thing to consider, like when you think of like say chapter 5,
yep,
that has the flashback scene to the docks, and I do like the way it all comes together, where it starts off with Edward and Alice, because they're part of the group from Sanctuary, and we kind of slowly get introduced to the group that we know.
Mm-hmm.
We get introduced to Bradley and his girls, then they find Alice, and then it's assistants, and it's like when you see it when like the journey first started, and there's a bit where Edward asks Alice how many people they have, and it's like 58, and just for Edward to be the leader of that group, and it just gets dwindled down to like half a dozen.
Yeah,
because it's literally the super mutants attack, and then it's just them on the run trying to survive, and like no one's left near the end of it. Like he's done what he can, but there's only so much he can do.
Yeah. From the VA perspective, though, we're like, oh, do I have a favorite character? It's like I don't know how, like, when it will let up. I probably might never, but no matter how far I go through my career of, trying to become a great voice actor, I think I'll always feel like the baby Yoda in the room with other voice actors. I'm just sitting there sipping my tea going, wow, you guys are great. I just always feel like this little odd one out on the couch. But all the performances were great in their own way, but Billy stands out to me. There's something in the tonality of the delivery there that's just so great. I don't know what it is, but it's lovely. And I'm having a mental blank here. The gentleman who voiced Ghost.
Jack Mack.
Yeah. Now, Jack's a bit of a prolific on Casting Call Club, isn't he? I'm pretty sure I see him around quite a bit. He has this...
Yeah, I looked at his audition, like his page, and his auditions was something like 1,600.
Oh, yeah. He's everywhere. And
yeah.
I love the timbre of his voice. I'm not sure where he's from. I think he might be Norwegian or something, but he has this really...
I think it's some European country. Yeah. I'm not sure which one, but
yeah. We're not going to label
that unique accent.
That's it. It's such this... Yeah. I don't know how to describe it, but the timbre in his voice is just something otherworldly, and I think when you assigned it to Ghost, I was like, wow, this super mutant is much more calm than I thought he would be, but if anything, that kind of makes it a bit...
Super mutant?
Oh, sorry, not super mutant. He's not a super mutant.
Viking.
Yes, Viking. No, I remember ages back when you were posting all the art, there was a quick post where there was a comment label underneath where it's like, oh, Ghost looks great, and I immediately associated it with the picture above. So yeah, I've bungled that twice.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said that I assigned him Ghost, because there was never a casting call for Ghost.
Wasn't there?
Jack Mack auditioned for another project, and I can't remember which one because it was that long ago, and he didn't get the part because his voice just wasn't right for it. But, it's such a really unique and distinctive voice. And then when coming up with Ghost, I'm like, okay, I want him to play it.
Oh, I think it was definitely a great fit. It's I don't know, something about just the bouncing from word to word. It's so
E-
methodical.
Especially when you get those it's only a handful of scenes, but it's when it's him and Harold Saxon because they're just completely opposite.
Yeah, Saxon is this very boisterous, loud man, and then you've got Ghost.
Yes,
who's just like
who's gross, disgusting, who constantly is drinking, and then you got Ghost who's cold and calculating, working everything out.
So yeah, if you catch him around on Casting Call Club, give him a couple of thumbs up and a comment because it's fantastic. The more I listened to it, the more I fell in love with Ghost, and he kept me on the edge of my seat. I'm like, it's just how to put it. It's interesting when you hear someone speak with emotion to their voice, but a complete lack of empathy. That's how it came across to me, and it just makes Ghost so cold. Oh well, I've literally run out of questions, John. I can't think of anything else. Is there anything you'd like me to query you on in particular?
It's more like I'm just enjoying just talking about it and just discussing it because it's all these things I've just had in my head, and now I finally get to talk to someone, get to share my thoughts. Obviously I mentioned the whole spiritual references in chapter 2 and them just going over your head, and it's yeah, see,
Yeah.
I think about stuff.
The videos are nuanced.
Yes,
There's a lot here.
There's layers.
Like an onion.
I was going to say like an ogre. Because there's just even small scenes, because I write the main script, it gets done, and then there's redos, and sometimes there's brand new scenes that just come in there, which really does just flesh it out a bit more. Because there's a couple redos for chapter 4, and that's just in the market where you finally meet all these various characters who just fill up the world.
Was the good doctor in episode 6? I can't remember because I'm...
The good doctor?
Dr. Thursday.
Professor Thursday.
Professor Thursday. Different kind of doctorate.
She was chapter 6.
Yes, no, I remember that was a complete
doing all the
redo
experiments.
chapter. That wasn't in the initial send out, but then you were like, hang on, I've got something. Wasn't it? I swear there was a redo there.
I think it was.
I think
it was part of it because I had church.
I only remember doing the lines for Erwin saying it'll be okay, and then I think that was it.
Yeah. That was part of the thing. There was some things added in, expanding it a bit more and altering some of the things. But the actual concept of Ren, Professor Thursday, that scene was still there.
Oh, well, do you feel like flipping the script some more? Do you have any other questions you'd like to ask me? Some hard hitters?
What do you want or expect to happen to Edward in season 2? Where would you take his character if you could choose?
Are we allowed to talk about that? Because I feel that, spoilers ahead, dip out of the video now.
No, not spoiling what was written for chapter 7.
Yep.
I'm just saying, end of season 1, what would you want to happen? Actually, let's broaden the question a bit more. What would you want to happen in season 2?
I think Edward needs to be confronted with the fact that he can't just keep compartmentalizing everything he encounters as just a whim of fate. It's not my fault that these things are happening. It's because they're preordained. I have no control. It's no, you are very much responsible for a lot of things that have happened, and the sooner life smacks you in the side of the head, hopefully justifiably
But maybe some of the things were an act of faith, because, again, taking it back to Claw, because that's something Annabelle and Gilbert messed in, which is where they first met, which only happened because Dogmeat got captured, and then that just led Claw following them and that intervened, and just one of the very many paths that had just happened. Who says it's not down to some kind of faith that it was meant to happen?
For sure, but I know I mean more in relation to Edward himself and how he justifies his violent actions. And don't get me wrong, as you said, it's the Fallout world. Everyone's got to fight to survive.
Yeah.
But I feel that Edward
Like
one day is just going
killing
to
a
do
random
something.
Viking, no one cares.
That's it. But there's going to be something he's going to choose to do and just be like, it made the advance a little easier. Like, no, man, you can't just play that off. In fact, I think one thing that'll really solidify for me whether he's that ingrained in this faith idea is I really want to know the more in-depth story of what sets off that, back and forth in Chapter 7. We'll just keep referencing this, just keep teasing it. But there's an event.
It's because it's like a key moment.
It is a massive key moment
it's
for the
that
character.
one scene, and not just the character, but
the whole,
there's other characters there, and just that one scene,
well, okay.
And it just changes everything.
The reason I say it's pinnacle to the characters because I feel like that conversation is like this little atom, this mini nuke that's sitting in the middle of the room, and Edward's just got like a hammer, just going, "I'll do it. I will bring this down," and it blows everything apart. And it's like, dude, no.
I'm going to avoid spoilers at all cost, but that scene you're talking about, I'd like to point, in the exact same scene, something else happens to another character, who I won't say if we know them, if they're newly introduced, just another character,
yes.
And that changes everything for that character.
Dun, dun, dun. But yes, no, there's an event that is being transpired there. I'm like, if I knew the details of that, I reckon it would tell me a lot I know about Edward. Like, accidents, faith, da-da-da-da-da. Like, I feel there's a point where we're tiptoeing around it so much that people are going to be able to outline the shape of this bush we keep dancing around pretty well. But
that Edward was just a figment of Bradley's imagination the whole time.
Yeah, although the gunner.
How did he kill the Viking?
The gunner tattoo is actually like a microchip. The whole thing is a good neighbor simulation. Not really.
It wasn't actually like a gunner tattoo. It was just a tattoo of a bullet.
Oh, I figured that's sort of like a gunner tattoo. Then again, that's usually traditionally a skull, isn't it? Black skull. But either way.
Yeah, it's like when making references to the core game things, it's where I don't want to take too much.
Yeah.
Because I want it to be its own thing, but at the same time, I don't want to make it change everything to the point where because one thing I was concentrating with is there's a red rocket station, and I'm like, oh, what if in England they're blue, so it's blue rockets? But then I thought, that comes off as too much fan fiction where we can't say red rocket because it's the main thing. Let's just make a cheap knockoff, and it's like, nah, just keep it a red rocket.
Well, that's it. I think the Fallout universe to me just strikes out as being so what would you say, corporate America, that I would not be surprised that brand went all the way over to the UK and Australia and everywhere else, especially since according to the Fallout 1 law, they annexed Canada, they fought over Alaska with China. It's like,
oh god,
no,
yes.
I guarantee their footprint is everywhere. So, brand names are fine.
That gets away with, and one thing from the start I didn't want was vaults, because that's the whole vault tech, which is an American thing. It's the core aspect of the games, and it's something where I just didn't want to copy. Because I think they in the actual games they say there's 123 volts, and I didn't want to go, oh, but there's a secret 124th volt in a different country. That's just too far.
I'm about to say, I could be wrong, and I guarantee someone in the comments would correct the both of us, but the 123 is only, as you said, America's listing. Who's to say there wasn't a spin-off company?
Again, yeah, which, the volts is linked to the games, and it's I that's just something I don't want to mix with.
Yeah. And if anything, I think it was a good idea to leave the vaults out as well, because due to their experimental nature, there's too much of a temptation narratively to be okay, this is the adventure of the week scenario, because vaults can be so wacky and random. So no, definitely a good choice to sort of put that by the wayside, I feel.
And because it's like a different like format, some things have to get left behind. Because like in games, you've got VATs, which that's literally a game mechanic. So for a story-wise aspect, like there's no way you can transmit it over.
No, I don't think so. Not at least with having this really weird blinking sound in the background before every character takes a shot, and you'd be like, "What is that noise?"
And it's more the question of like, how can that character do that?
Well, that's it. We've only got one with a Pip-Boy,
Yeah.
so it's not like
Yes,
Edward or anyone
which
else is doing it.
kind of gets passed around a bit because Alice gets it at the docks and then Ghost has the Pip-Boy, but that's because he took it from Alice and then Billy like steals it back. Like that, like I spent so much time like trying to work out things like that where it passes from here, passes to there, and then it's like, okay, Billy is the one who has the backpack, and then she gets captured and sent back to Ghost Clan, and then it's Annabelle, Gilbert, and Alice, and then I'm like, oh wait, they need supplies. So then I'm like, okay, I've got to quickly write a scene where Billy drops the backpack so Alice can pick it up, so the supplies are now with her. Because Billy won't need the supplies from now on, and it's just trying to like work it all out, and the timing as well. Because I do rough timing where from this location to this location's like it took them half a day or something like that. So then traveling backwards would also take half a day.
I think at this point, with the amount of projects you've got and how much writing work went into this one, we can confirm that your studio is just like a series of posters with pins in them and all these red strings just flying everywhere.
Yeah, I do kind of cheat around some things, which I kind of gave characters horses, because the bit where Harold captures Edward and all that lot, because there's a bit where he does say, go grab the horses, because, you know, horses travel faster, and, you know, it's a reason why.
Fair enough. I'm actually surprised that we've never brought up the idea of rad horses throughout the entire series of Fallout in general. We've got mutant cows and squirrels, but no horses.
Well, no, the mutant cows were before the Fallout.
Really? I must have missed that
Yes.
way back in the day. Mind you, though.
Yes. From what
Like, what, Fallout 1 was
what I
1997? I would have been 7 years old, so
Yeah.
that was a while for me.
From what I can remember, and this is just off a YouTube video I watched, it's like before the Great War, they were like food shortages and something like that, and they kind of, some Indian, I think it was Indian at least, they kind of bred a cow and something else together to make the Brahmin, which was more efficient, and that just became the new default thing.
Well, there you go. I learnt something today. I did not know that. But then again, I suppose...
And like I said, that's just going off my memory.
Yeah, oh, well, I'm sure like I can either go and check out our favourite Fallout lore enthusiast or, you know, come on, guys, it's the internet. Surely you want to, you know, pick us in a bit. Comment sections are down there.
Yeah,
Correct me.
Interestingly enough,
it's the only way
interestingly enough, I also believe the Death Claws was before the apocalypse as well.
Yes, they were genetically
and they
bred
were like
by the
some
Enclave as
testing
a
on
weapon.
them. Yeah. And then
a
you've got Mirelurks
California
who
desert
weren't
gecko?
because of the radiation. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you got Mirelurks who they were more the next evolution than anything to do with the whole nuclear waste and all of that.
It's all a very complex universe once you get into it.
Yeah, which like trying to create all these different animals, and because you know at the beginning I just wanted something like all simple ones. I mean, you got the tree serpent, which is a massive one, because I didn't want to bring anything too powerful in yet.
I guess that's actually something worth talking about in terms of the creation process of Darkest Hour. Obviously, the UK is a great setting for you because you live there, you know a lot about your home country, but is there something you think that a UK setting for the Fallout universe can do like quite well that wouldn't work in an American setting?
Oh, definitely yes. Like, see, my mind's just drawn a blank.
but there are things. We go back to the posters in his room with the string. I'll have to go back and check your notes.
There's actually I thought you was going to ask a different question, which is what kind of threw me off. I thought you was going to ask me like some of the creation behind some of the creatures. and that had me ready for a story. So
Well, we'll pretend I
Lee
asked that
Measures-
anyway. The creatures, John. The creatures, yes.
yeah, the creatures. So Lee Measures, he's done several of my projects for years. He's a good friend of mine,
Mhm.
and he voices Buddy. So the main reason for getting him to voice Buddy was because he was moving house. His new setup wasn't that good. So I'm like, hey, why don't you voice the radio guy? And because he's a hand-built radio, I add a bunch of static in. So if your mic quality is not that good, it kind of works with it.
We've just pulled the cloth away from the illusion. It no longer works.
Yes.
Back it up.
So no. So there's a bit in chapter 5 where he's talking about Davis.
Yes.
And he was down in Brighton at the time when he was recording this. And in the background, you can hear a couple seagulls. And I do mention, and you can actually hear it in the finished product. And I do mention to him saying, "Oh yeah, you can hear some seagulls in the background." And he just replied with like, "Bloody vermin! I swear, if there's one thing that survives a nuclear apocalypse, it's them." Which made me just think, what would it be?
A rad gull.
I am just like, yeah, I am just half tempted just to. You know how, like, in 76, the scorched beasts are just bats? Like, do something similar. Just take a seagull and just have it, like, a massive mutated creature.
Well, I mean, I'm reminded of that old film Birds. You go outside and they're all perched on the wire. It's like, well, we can imagine that, but now imagine they're all radioactive and you're the chip.
Oh, you saying that actually made me think radioactive. I haven't... Because, you get some... Like, take Feral Ghouls. You had some that were just radioactive in the games. I haven't introduced any of that.
Yeah, the glowing
haven't
ones.
introduced, like, plasma weapons. Because, that brings me back to your original question. Because,
Yeah.
America is very more gun-friendly than England over here.
Or Australia, for
which
that
is
matter,
why,
yep.
Which is why the character... Like, there's a few guns. There's more pipe guns, because pipe guns are what you make yourself.
Yep.
And even then, I tried having it where the bullets are limited. Because, like, most Vikings are, like, sword and shield, spear, whatever. So, like, having a gun really brings the advantage.
I'm actually surprised there aren't a lot more people rocking, like, bow and arrows and bolt crossbows or something like that.
Well, moving forward, I want to bring, like, a bit more variety. Like, at the beginning, it's keeping it simple. Like, because it's, like, most of the first season is just Edward and his group on the run. And they don't have a lot of chance to find other stuff.
Actually, on that notion...
But, like...
Oh, yep. Sorry, you go.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, but, like, I haven't introduced stuff like the plasma weapons or any of those high-concept stuff. Because, like, in the games, you get them as you go later on.
Yeah. Well, on that notion, speaking of high concept, the first thing that jumped into my mind when we're talking high-tech, plasma, is, of course, the Brotherhood of Steel. And I think that there's one gentleman, the Knight, who comes along in the Market episode, which would be episode 4, and he references
Gawain.
Camelot.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful little shout out, but I kind of want to know more about that. Not only as a cast member, but an audience member.
So, first off, do you actually know who voiced Gawain?
No, I didn't check the credits for that. My apologies to that particular castmate. I didn't check.
Angus Townley.
Ah, there we go. Back to...
who voiced the Vikings. It's mainly because he was voicing the Vikings, which, like, he does a great job at that, given, like, all various different voices. But they're not really a character, which is why, Gawain, small part, I'm planning on doing more with him in the future. So, he gets to voice the Vikings, and then there's an actual character for him to play. Which, because I was just going back through, like, all England history and stuff like that. And obviously, you've got King Arthur, Camelot, Merlin, and it's like...
The whole Arthurian
let's just have
spiel,
a little tease for that. Yeah. So that was a little tease for that. And it's like, okay, which one should I have? And I'm like, I don't want to do Lancelot because that's a bit known.
Yeah.
And Gawain, he's kind of known, but he's not like a main off the top of your head one.
Definitely a very...
So I'm like, okay, I have Gawain in there.
Very niche.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you mentioned Brotherhood of Steel, because in the games, Brotherhood of Steel, they took their hierarchy thing from King Arthur. So I wouldn't say Gawain and the whole Camelot is linked to Brotherhood of Steel. It's where it's the same. They took the same basic concept and did different things.
It just struck me as a Brotherhood of Steel type organization because they make mention that he's wearing power armor, don't they?
No,
No?
not power armor.
Oh, well, then I misheard
Armor.
that. Oh, just regular. Okay.
Yeah.
With
A
how
knight in shining armor.
right, with how like excited they Billy was about seeing him, I thought, oh, is he wearing like T60 or T45 power armor or something? That's just how
No. It's
misconstrued
just
it.
normal knight armor.
I'm just dreaming big. But then again, I suppose if you're walking around in what is essentially like English crafted full plate in a Fallout universe, you would feel like the biggest mechanized man around.
Mm-hmm.
But no, we'll just have to get that man a fusion cell.
Oh, I do plan on having Camelot come up in the future. It may not be season 2, but they gotta pop up.
They gotta pop up somewhere. Yep.
Oh god, yes. And like I said, it takes like them and the Brotherhood of Steel. It takes the same basic concepts. It's like I've got the Children of Atom, which when I introduce them, there's a slight reference to them. So in the pilot episode, there's a bit at the beginning with Buddy just talking, and I consider that like a prelude.
Mm-hmm.
And he's talking about like the 3 main factions, and one of them was the Children of Atom, which you've got Children of Atom in Fallout 4, Fallout 3, and my ones, I wanted them to have the same name, but like nothing to do with them, like.
Which I think definitely throws people off.
Yes, because Children of Atom in the games, they're kind of, you see them as the bad guys, whereas in this, they're more good. They're not a fan of ghouls, but they're there to help people, offer food, shelter, water. Literally, like, just trying to help.
Which I must admit, the introduction, episode 4, certainly doesn't help Edward's side of that argument of, like, they're good people. It's like, well, they certainly didn't come off that way. So, like, I think much like Bradley, we're all sitting there going, I'm suspicious.
Yeah, it's mainly because Gilbert was there, because I got to have another scene with him in the future where they're trying to do some good. Where, like I said, they don't like ghouls because, you know, the nuclear war was Atom's gift, and you can worship it, and if you're not worthy, you will be rejected, which is what they see ghouls as, because ghouls bathed in radiation, and they just turn into a ghoul. So for the Children of Atom, ghouls are just like the heathens and blasphemers that Atom has rejected. They're not worth your time. They're not worth saving.
Is it sort of like a left behind thing, like a Christian rapture sort of metaphor? Yeah, right. So yeah, it's like, no, you're here to suffer. It's like, well, it's like,
yeah, pretty much.
Well, you're here with me too. What does it make you?
Yeah, but like they didn't get changed into a ghoul.
Yeah, that's true, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, if you get like radiation, hair falls out, and you die, they've been chosen by Atom or something along those lines.
Something twisted, I'm sure.
Yeah. Which is like I said, I wanted to have them as good people willing to help out. Because in that scene, like I said 1,000 times now, it's just because Gilbert was there, but they were there trying to, like, save Annabelle in a sense. Cure your soul and all that.
Is there more to Assistance than just being a random reactivated Assaultron? Will we get more on her? Like, an expansion?
Well, how closely have you looked at the artwork?
Not very, actually, I must admit.
Okay. So on the artwork, on the main body of Assistance, there's a faded name, and the name is Marvin, which is obviously a reference to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
I'd like you all to know I'm feeling very murderous right now. Not a word you want to hear an Assaultron say.
Yeah, which, like, Assistance is... It's just one of those things where, you know, Assaultrons, killing machines, they're used in the army, and it's the fact that Assistance just cannot kill. And, like, Edward gets the genius idea of, she cannot kill, but she can help. Can you free me of my chains?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, that's it. And but yeah, other than that reference on the artwork, is there something that's going to happen in later seasons? Like we get to learn about that faded name tag, or is it just sort of a throwaway?
It's possible.
No, fair enough. He's like, I haven't ruled it out. not majorly
Like
narratively
that is a
relevant.
lot of the things. It's just planting down the seeds because, like I said, I want to take each season at a time. So like each season is standalone in a sense.
Actually, speaking of robots, it's you were asking me earlier about the various roles that came up. I think one of the
Hmm.
hilarious things I remember during recording was for the Servatron. Now initially,
You did the sound effects.
yeah, the juddering no, but more when you initially
Yes.
threw me the script, you were like, okay, I need this red pitch perfect, and I need it done fast because he's got a lot of people to serve. So chop chop, and I'm like,
Oh, okay.
can I do this
Bit
in
of
one breath?
clarity. I was going to say, bit of clarity. When I say fast, I don't mean I need this the next day. I
Oh
need
yeah,
it
yeah, no,
red
fast
fast.
pace,
Yeah,
red
yeah,
fast
yeah.
pace, yes.
Yes.
And it's funny that
Which that was like when I was designing the robots. I'm like, okay, a robot that does service for people, and it's like they're behind the bar, they're on the rail, moving backwards and forth, and it's like, what if it just speaks really fast? Because the faster it speaks, the faster it can serve the customer, which means the more customers they can get.
which I think turned out hilariously Americanized in a way, because
Yes.
when it came to it, I'm like, well, you can't do this in the usual Mr. Handy of like, totty do, mum. It just doesn't work. So
Yes.
what you end up getting is this
Hmm.
weird 1940s, like, there's this accent. I don't think it's a crooner accent, but yeah, this sort of cross between a salesman, a used lot car salesman, and a musician. I don't know. It just turned out so fantastically weird, and I love it. And it's so out of place in a UK setting, just this American style diner.
I do feel like the scene also helps it.
Oh, definitely.
Because
Yeah.
I do just, yeah, because when I was writing, I was just like, okay, because there's the bit where they run off and he senses they left, and it's like, oh, my apologies.
You didn't
And
fill
then
out
it's
our
like,
survey,
if you
but
could let
fair
us know
enough.
how to improve. No, this 42-page
Survey,
survey.
yeah. Which, unfortunately, it is there. It's very quiet in the background, but I think by the time he goes to say that, it's panned outside to Ghost and his crew.
Yeah, no, because you got the narration talking, and like he's still talking, and I remember just like writing basic stuff, saying like where he's given the whole spill for the cast, like all our stuff is handmade by professionals, and then it's like ensuring that we can receive, and then you hear the thing top quality as it just
Kaboom.
explodes.
But no, that moment does stand out to me just because
Yeah.
how it turned out, but it was good.
See, I do like those little moments where you have they're small characters, but they're just so great. Like one of them, which is probably the king of the small great characters, is Erwin.
Really, my money would be on Junk personally. I loved that
Junk does have that voice.
that
He does
that
have
that's
that
that. It's the
voice.
voice. I'm like,
Very
I am
Del Boy.
drawn to you. I want to know more about you. You seem like an upstanding chap.
Mm,
More Junk.
very Del Boy. Trotter kind of thing, if you've seen Only Fools and Horses.
No, unfortunately. Well, anyway,
No.
you think Irwin takes that crown?
It's a British.
Oh, sorry, the show.
I was going to say,
The show.
so Only Fools and Horses, yeah.
Yep.
Show from like the 80s, 90s. It's in like London, and you got Del Boy, and he's like the person who left school, and it's where he gets like a bunch. He's down at the market selling stuff, but he's buying them for cheap, so they're all like not that effective, and then he's just like trying to sell them on, make money. And one key thing, and he's got like this little catchphrase where he's telling his like younger brother, who's like they're all adults at this point, and they're also looking after their granddad, and his little catchphrase is like, this time next year we'll be millionaires. And he's like, it's just like the whole series of them like just trying to do all these little things. And one thing that stands out to me is he has these like little Barbie dolls kind of thing.
Right.
And like I said, he gets them for all cheap, so they're all like defected. And he's like, see, what kind of girl wouldn't love to have this? And as he puts it down, the voice goes off, and the voice is just the Daleks exterminate. Yeah.
That's very quirky.
Which that's how I kind of see Junk, which, he's called Junk. He's just like buying the scraps and kind of turn it to make money, which is working for him. Yeah. But no, Erwin, because you really just brought so much to the character from doing an Australian voice.
Yes. Oh no. Well, sorry.
And
Like, just to clarify, that is not how most of us talk. But every time I step up to a microphone, there was a project recently. Same thing happened. You know, like, oh, Australian accent. You talk like this, you and I. And they're like, no. Like, your natural accent. I'm like, okay, yep, I get what you mean. Oh no, I know what they want. Anyway, yeah. So we went full Ocker with that one.
which like. And he was so great, and it is a shame that he can't come back. Like his character's done, but sometimes that's for the better. Leave it short and sweet, and rather than dragging it out.
That's it. Some of those jokes they can run tired, but it was definitely a golden little memory. I personally, when I listen to that scene, I can tell the difference between my prim and proper
which
speaking,
scene?
where Edward is talking to Erwin. Yeah. I can tell the difference between my prim and proper and the Australian accent, but I remember you saying like, "Oh yeah, you're talking to yourself."
Very quickly, just so the audience knows, you did the whole part of Edwin.
Yep.
I casted someone else as Erwin because you didn't even audition for that part, but I didn't hear back from them. So I was like going around trying to find other people, and then I asked you because you're Australian and you did it. And so you recording those two voices were like months apart.
Oh, absolutely months apart.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
And it was like, because they were months apart, I didn't even think about it until like much later on, where I'm like, hold on, it's the same person.
You're talking to yourself. I went, yeah.
And oh no. Do you remember your other role in Chapter 5?
Oh yeah. Yes, the dock worker. So,
yes,
or Professor Quirrell.
The reference to yes. Which just had to be done, and you kept like giving me like the lines, and I'm like, no, ham it up more, just have some fun for it. And I think you like went over the top, and you're like, okay, fine, here's over the top, and I'm like, can you do more?
Because I remember, you said to me like, oh, it's a reference to this movie, but you never specifically stated in Discord, this is exactly what I want, that over the top dramatic. Oh dear, okay. I'm going to faint. So I went, oh, okay, like let's try and like put an old man or something fainting. They're like, no.
You something that works in the scene.
I need you to fop till you drop. But I went, okay.
Just over the top.
Now, I remember the reason that took me so long to sort of do is the old space I was in was under the stairs in my old house.
Which was convenient since you're playing a role from Harry Potter.
It was convenient. It was definitely some mood setting. However, unfortunately, though, a lot of the sound used to reverberate around that space a lot. So when I went, whoa, and like did the full cries and that, it would just peak. The audio would go all over the place. So I had to tone my mic down enough, but also, speak loudly enough with enough distinction to get it. And I think it worked out well, but I dare say that it's a shame I didn't get that role a little later when I had upgraded to my cubby house booth outside the stairwell. But I think you remember when that first happened. I went, oh, it's going to sound different. You're like, I can't hear what you're talking about, but
it sounds the same.
The sound did change slightly, but yes, no, I do remember that now that you mention it. That fell by the wayside. I heard it. I actually even forgot it was me somehow.
So one thing I just thought about, because obviously we've been talking about all these characters. Mm-hmm. I won't mention who, but there's like one character we haven't mentioned, and that made me think, is there any characters you kind of want to see more of in the future? Like have a bigger role, more time in the spotlight?
Oh, more time in the spotlight.
Yes, apart from Edwin.
Oh, no. Oh, yes. Me, no.
Yes.
If anything, I am like, no, please, do take the spotlight. I'm backing away from that.
Actually, just to sidetrack a little bit, when I was like trying to think like moving the story forward, because Edwin was the leader of the old group, and now Annabelle's kind of become the leader since she's the one who set up Red Rocket.
Yep.
And I'm like, so since the powers like changed hands, is there much need of Edwin? And I'm like, because he was pretty much just like leading the group, trying to get them through survival. And then I thought, oh wait, there's one thing Edwin has that no one else does, which kind of really will give him a purpose going forward. He's the only one who actually knows the world.
Yes, he's the direction giver. Everyone else
Yeah.
goes, we're lost, and he goes,
Yeah.
we're here, we're there, I know where I'm going.
Yeah.
So he's a guide.
Yeah, because Annabelle has been in the farm the whole life. Alice is not social. She stayed behind in Sanctuary. The others are immigrants from another country. You've got Gilbert, who doesn't have a memory. So then you've got Bradley, who knows towns. He knows people. He, in a sense, would just give him a purpose in the story going forward.
You get to be a Sherpa with the occasional odd commentary. That broken record quote of like, we just need to have faith. It was actually when I was listening through the series again before we had this podcast, it got to the point exactly where Bradley says it. If you say that one more time, I was actually thinking the same thing. I'm like, oh, here I go again. And Bradley cuts me off and goes, if you say you've just got to have faith, I swear. Like, fair point.
So, getting back to my original question for the minor sidetrack, any characters you want more in the spotlight to see more?
I actually want to see more from Annabelle. Oddly enough, I've only gone and listened to chapter 1 once, but it's a long time ago. I can't remember if she's in it. No, she is, yeah.
Well, Annabelle.
Yeah, she is in it. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, she's the main character.
I'm aware of that, but it's just more. If we go through your catalog on YouTube, you've got chapter 2 of Fallout Darkest Hour, and we scroll.
Because chapter 1 was done as a pilot.
It was a fair while ago, so I listened to it a fair while ago. I think it might have been back that year and a bit ago when we first, or 2 years.
Casting, maybe?
Yeah, when we first
and you're like,
cast,
okay,
and
what is this
and
thing?
I went and listened to it, so it's been that long. But no, oddly enough, I'd love to see more from her, because I remember we had that conversation once over Discord. You mentioned like, oh, she is the main character. I went, that's odd, because she's, to me, like, I felt like I'd heard more from Billy and Edward and Bradley and the rest of the gang.
Yeah, because she's the one the audience sees the world through, in as such.
That's true, yeah, but I don't know, just...
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to see more from her, because it's one thing to have her be the narrator or the reteller of the story, but very little of that focuses on her own actions. But I guess that could probably speak to how the character is a little introverted in a way. She doesn't like talking about herself
and
much,
out of her depth.
That's it. As she sees other people
because
doing
bear in
this
mind,
and talks about it.
So you've got her in chapter 1, which is pretty much in her farm.
Yep.
She wasn't in much of chapter 2, but that's because chapter 2 is, end of chapter 1, you meet Edward's group, and it's like, hey, these characters are going to be important coming up. So then chapter 2 is pretty much focused on them, and it's like just little snippets from Annabelle out in the wasteland, and then she gets more to do going forward, not more to do, like the chapters going forward is kind of evenly split. And then you got chapter 3 where she meets up with Gilbert, which she finally has someone to talk to, because before that is just talking to Dogmeat, which isn't really a conversation. And then it's just them meeting Alice, and as the turning just keeps going round and round, leading them to the very end where all these people are finally together.
Speaking of voice acting MVPs, I feel we should give a shout out to the person who did most of the creature voices, Dogmeat. I believe they're also the serpent and the ghouls. Gerard, yes. There were times when I heard the dog bark, and I'm like, oh yeah, but legitimately there are a few times where Dogmeat's barking in the distance, and I'm like, that sounds like a real dog. Like, he's done quite well with himself on that one. But
it's I got him on board in Monster Island, and he was doing like the role, like, the voices of like casual werewolf zombie sounds, and it's like, because he did creature voices for me before, I'm like, hey, I need some more creature voices, can you help out? Which he has.
Oh, well, I'm really impressed with that range, especially with, as you said, if he's going from vampire to werewolf to zombie, and then it's like, oh, by the way, I need something in a corgi. You do a corgi? It just seems so...
Oh, hey, I need a worm. Can you make a worm sound?
So how do you sound like a worm?
Yeah.
Like flopping noises.
Which, see, for me, it's hard to do MVPs because, like, there's just been so many
everyone
fantastic ones.
contributes
Like, it all just
in
comes
their own
together.
way. But it
Yeah.
came up for me because
And I
you
feel like
mentioned
even
who has been underrepresented, and I'm like, well, I think of a lot of people who view it as an audience. They don't, like, you know, it's like, guys, all these creature voices, that was someone as well, and all the work they put into that.
Yeah.
So, just, you know, particular shout
See,
out.
because the person we haven't talked much about,
Yeah.
what more character would be Alice.
That's true, actually. She does sort of meld into the
Yeah.
background, but then again, she loves her personal space and to be left alone.
Yeah, she doesn't talk much. She only talks when she has to, which, you know, chapters 2 and 3 isn't that much. And then it's when it's like chapter 4, where it's just her and Billy. It forces her to, like, you know, the situation forces her to do stuff. And then same with chapter 5, where she's with Annabelle, and she's kind of the segue into the flashback. And then you kind of get chapter 6, where there's less from her, but that's just because it's the whole group again.
Well, we do get, she does come out in her own way. They ask for her opinion, and for once, she sounds happy to give it. So it's definitely a good turnaround
that's
point.
only because Edward kind of puts her on the spot. Like, you've got to say something. And then she's like, okay, I'll say something.
Oh, I misinterpreted that then, because the tonality that comes through in the character, it sounded happy to me. But, I mean, yeah.
The scene you're talking about is where they're at Fleetwood, and rather than heading north, Edward's like, "Oh, we go south," because, you know, he's thinking we should head to the market.
Yep, and she concurs with that. Yep. He's like, you know
mainly
what I'm thinking.
Because, like, you know, she's like all smart. She's like calculate things, and, you know, she's there calculating the options as well. Like, oh, it's quicker. Like, you know, it would take us longer to get back to Sanctuary if we go to the market, but going to the market will give us these benefits.
No, I think you're right. There's definitely a lot of workspace to work on her character, but from what I understood for our little
I've got some big plans coming up.
Yeah, you did mention that each character's sort of going to get.
You mean chapter 7?
No, like chapter 7, 8, everything that makes up chapter 2. You mentioned that you sort of wanted to give everyone their own little spotlight, so hers should be very interesting and quite in depth. Because I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, have we had all of her background spelled out particularly, or I don't think we have. It's just sort of left up to.
No. Literally. So from what we know of her is, so obviously, like, she's smart because she hacked assistants. There's a bit where, like, she mentions the magazine Total Hack. There's a bit where Annabelle asks Edward, like, I don't know about what Alice can do, and he just goes, oh, just let her find something to fix, like, smart stuff like that. She's obviously part of Sanctuary with Edward, and then there's the bit at the docks where he's going, see, get outside would be good for you, bring you out of your shell. Like, there's not much mention of her, but I have got it planned out. Like back during the pilot, I wrote, like, backdrops, in a sense, for each character. So, like, I've got her own little thing, which will be coming up.
Meanwhile, though, she's standing out there on the dock going, thanks, I'm getting a tan out here. I hope you're pleased with yourself. I'm certainly not pleased.
They're not even in the docks. They're in the boat shed.
Yeah, and yet, I assume her grump comes from
being
dragged away
England.
from a monitor.
What do you mean tan?
The sun monster was out again. We were mentioning before.
Yes, the sky god.
He's very angry.
Yeah, because like I said, she is the one who I did think of who hasn't got a lot in the spotlight, but will moving forward, which then made me think, oh, is there, like, any other characters you'd be really interested to see come back?
I think this is just going to have to be a long groan on my behalf if later in Alice's chapter there's, like, that classic 90s reference of I'm in. Like, John, I swear.
Yeah.
Don't.
Oh, don't worry. I'll make Edward say it. And I want multiple takes.
It's like, how do I sound like I'm wearing shades?
Because obviously, like you've got chapter 4 with the market, where it's a bunch of all these random characters, and, like, you personally like Junk, and you also like meet Whiskey Val, the mayor. I do like Matthew, who was the guard, mainly just because the voice actor really captured the young and innocent kind of thing.
Oh, he very much did. I remember I was listening through a few of those auditions, and he really stood out. He just has that charm to him. You're like, what a lovely young man.
Yeah. I hope nothing bad happens to him in the future.
We're referring to the character, of course. We were not holding the voice actor
Yes.
hostage or anything. You're going to voice in chapter
yes.
2, aren't you, buddy?
Yeah, so obviously, like, the market has all these like characters that fill out the world, and then I was also there thinking like, oh, because there's Harold Saxon, who I just really like. The voice actor brought it to a whole new level. Just the sloppy and grossness, the way he speaks.
I think the pinnacle line of that particular character for me was when who comments? It's either Alice or is it Billy? But they're like, "You're disgusting." He goes, "Yes, I am." Like, but
Yeah. The bit where he brings Billy in. Don't get too comfortable. She's been turning a few heads.
There's that
and she's like 14.
Smacking to his lips that you hear when he goes, "Yes, I am," and I'm just like, ugh, like, yeah.
Yeah. Because again, bear in mind, Billy is only 14.
Oh, rather not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, oh, yep, you are a disgusting, horrible person, aren't you? But you're a raider. It's to be expected. There's always that real-world equivalency to the Fallout setting. Oh, sorry, I should say real-world. Yeah, bringing real-world ethics into the fantasy setting. Sorry, what I meant by that was back in the lore of, like, you know, the point of time that Fallout got up to, which was 21 something, and then the bombs fell. So it's kind of like it's interesting to see that
2177.
Yeah, it's that interesting to see that jump back and that revert to an old world mentality, especially when so much of the tech remains.
That actually happened in our history.
Really?
Like take the Roman Empire.
Oh, the Dark Age.
And then it progressed. Like they had indoor plumbing.
Yep.
And then the Roman Empire fell, and then it's like the whole what I just consider medieval period, and it took us centuries to climb ourselves back up.
Yeah, and there was definitely a lot of social, political ramifications from that as well. So fair point. But no, just to solidify though what a skis this particular Viking is. There he is. Saxon, everybody.
I remember getting the artwork for him, and there's like a little Caro. Like, okay, so the artist I've only contacted through chats, so this is like the first time I've had to say her name. It's Karo, Caro, I think it's pronounced. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. Like, she's just a fantastic artist. And when I get into the artwork, it was as I was making it. So I sent over a sample of the voice actor with the description, and she came back with the artwork, and then I was able to look at the artwork and any redos, like describing the character a bit more, I could actually like base it off the artwork because she would just bring so much more to it. And I remember Harold's one, and he had a Viking horn, and she did like annotations, so I knew like what all the clothing was. And on the Viking horn, it just had in brackets, probably full of booze. And just from that, I'm like, I need to write that into like the script somehow, and like because that just sums up the character perfectly.
Very much does. He's he's a real piece of work.
Oh God, yes. and it's because he's such a real piece of work, you kind of enjoy listening from him as well.
Oh yeah, he's like if Robert Baratheon from Game of Thrones was more of a bore, but then like also just a lecherous.
No.
Disgusting.
If Robert Baratheon was actually an Ironborn.
Oh yeah, that works.
Yeah. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I see it.
See, now I'm just going over like some of the other characters.
That'll be the next question on the Discord. Hey guys, what Game of Thrones house does everyone belong to? pop quiz.
Well, oh no, because you bringing up Game of Thrones houses kind of can lead us into the whole Viking clans.
That's true. Yeah. They are mentioned, but it never goes into depth about what each one does.
So as obviously when I was playing Fallout, like you know when you kill a person, you can grab their loot and you could get like I almost said Viking for a moment, Raider armor, and I just thought if I'm wearing that, couldn't I just walk into a Raider base? Which game logic, it doesn't work. They can't code that much detail, but that was the inspiration to Annabelle escaping, and then that made me think, oh wait, how do you tell each other apart? And then that led to the whole different colors kind of thing. So each clan has a different color.
Right. Yeah, like the heraldry of sense. So going back to that Anglo-Saxon period of the UK.
I mean, here's the thing though, like the character's called Harold Saxon, but it's not actually a reference to the Saxon period. It's from the TV show Doctor Who. In the third season of New Who, the Master is the Prime Minister, and he's called Harold Saxon.
Right. Well, there you go.
Yeah. Like, some of the references, you might think, oh, that's a reference to the Saxon period. No.
No, I just really like Doctor Who.
No. Yeah. Just love it.
Just all this intricate symbolism to religious, iconography, and then just like, oh, I also really like Doctor Who.
Doctor Who. Yeah.
Like, not everything's as deep as you think.
Which, again, I have, like, the map of Fallout, and I've kind of got a list of different clans, and I've kind of just done, like, circles, like, this is, like, Saxon clan, this is Ghost clan, and, because obviously all the clans are, like, not friendly with each other.
Oh, definitely not. And on that notion, it leads us to part of the reveal of, I believe it's episode 6, where Saxon and Ghost are talking about chucking a Game of Thrones and uniting the clans, bringing all the Fallout wildlings together. Is that definitely a plot point we can see taking center stage in season 2?
Maybe not season 2, but it's something going forward. Because obviously, you got Ghost wanting to get the group, and it's like he's made an alliance with Harold Saxon, with the Saxon clan, and then it's like, what if we actually get more of them on our side? Because you have the bit like in the market where they don't really talk about Vikings so much. They just mention like, Serpent Clan hasn't attacked in ages, and it's not mention of Vikings. It's just them talking about Serpent Clan because they're in Serpent Clan's territory. They've never had to deal with like Saxon Clan or Ghost Clan
or anything like that.
Yeah. So because of that, I can't remember if there was a line in it, but like Ghost kind of chasing after them. Could he go into someone else's clan? Like clan territory? Because, like, let's just say if Saxon Clan ended up in Serpent Clan, the Serpent Clan, seeing Saxon Clan there, will just instantly kill them. They're in our territory.
Yeah, it's like, what can you possibly bring along to have them stop and listen to you? Because, I mean, you can't bring exorbitant amounts of, caps or something to try and convince them to sit down. They'll just kill you and take it. So how do you get along with this? So I'm wondering if maybe that's part of Ghost's little operation with Flash, is it called?
Yeah, you got the drug Flash. Well, they're in a water treatment plant, which you do have Annabelle mention in Chapter 5, saying if they can get purified water, they would have an unlimited supply. But then in Chapter 6, Ghost just says, no, this place is rust. Like, it's useless. You can't get anything from it. Which is why, like, you got the whole drug thing where they're creating Flash, and they're pretty much the only ones who's created it. It's something they've done. And, like, drugs, like, just get it on the Fallout market. They're instantly worth stuff. There's the bit where they're selling to junk, and he's like, the chems here are the most valuable.
Yeah.
So, obviously, they're just mass-producing Flash. And once that goes on the market, they're going to get so much caps. And then from caps, they can just buy other stuff, like more weapons. Because like I said, guns are very limited.
I'm actually very curious as to, like, when I heard the idea about Flash and what it does, I'm like, that could be a whole plot point unto itself. I sort of looked at it and went, okay, so it shows the user their own memories. But I'm like, but how?
Yeah.
And
relive
why.
the past.
But then I started thinking, well, what happens if you provide outside stimuli to the person while they're tripping? Can you influence those flashbacks? Like, how much are you able to sort of
Well, at the
do here?
moment, it's pretty much inject yourself and you just get a random memory of such, which is like, because obviously Gilbert uses it, and it's the child Jacob, because at the beginning he's searching for someone, but he doesn't remember who. And then Whiskey Val mentions, "Oh, you was asking about Jacob," and he completely forgets. He's like, "Was I? Who the hell's Jacob?" and all that.
Yep.
And then he has to actually inject the drug Flash, even though he promised Annabelle no drugs, and that has allowed him to remember who Jacob is. And he's still got some Flash drugs.
I mean, technically, it's only just been invented. It's on the open market, so it's more of a experimental medicine. Yeah, it's not a drug. It's fine. It's legal.
It's not quite on the market yet, but he has a few, and it's kind of his only way for him to find out more about Jacob.
But
and especially since he has the bad memory, and then all of a sudden, hey, I have this thing that can make me remember the past, things I've forgotten.
I think I expected it to be sort of a larger, sinister plot of Ghosts to maybe use it to make people think they remember like a better time before the war and sort of bring people together, good neighbor style. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe just thinking about it too hard.
Well, that's the thing with Ghost. Like, you never quite know what he's up to. Because, it was I had an idea and I put it in as the reshoot, which is just narration thing. It's the bit after Annabelle and Edward and all that escapes, and after Ghost talks to his Vikings, he goes to his office.
Yep.
And it's the moment. It's like, okay, what's he going to do now? Why are we still following him? And he just pulls out a pack of dominoes.
And just methodically starts placing them, yep.
No, and he's putting each piece in place one at a time.
The foreshadowing.
Because that is pretty much Ghost to a key. He's there just trying to put all these pieces in place, trying to have as many fingers in the pies. Because bear in mind, we get his flashback, and he was just a simple farmer boy that was taken into a Viking clan, and now he's a ruthless leader of one.
Yeah, so there's clearly a story there, and not only that, what exactly did he discover, or what happened to him that would make him have such this a lofty ambition? What's he after? I don't think that's ever actually explained as a grander scheme, but it's just he's just ambitious, but I don't think
because at the beginning it's pretty much this is the first, not the first clan we meet, but this is the first leader of the clans we meet.
Yeah. I think that's probably a good place to wrap it up in a way, because you've mentioned that you may want to do some other episodes in future. I think we should probably leave some content for them.
Oh, I'm definitely up for doing more this kind of talking thing. It's just, well, we've talked about season 1, so it's unless future ones we talk we pick a specific.
I think the only reason as well that I keep saying season 2 is because look, this one took us about a year and a bit to come out. I can't wait that long for season 3. Yeah. It all needs to be in season 2. It's
well, that's the other thing. When you look at season 1, it hasn't explored that much.
No, it's just set it
off
up.
The world. Yeah, off the world, it's pretty much Ghost Clan's base. You've got the market, you've got Red Rocket, a couple small locations, which again are empty houses. Not much has been explored.
So there's still a lot more to come.
Yeah, as you said, you've got Gwaine, and you're okay, I want to know more from this guy, more from Camelot. Will we meet Camelot?
Yeah, is Camelot a major player, or are they literally just a fairground attraction? I'm putting way too much stock in them.
Exactly, it's what could come from it, and like I said earlier, I've got concepts for the next few seasons. It's literally just writing them and getting them made.
Well, if anyone's going to do it, John, I think it's going to be you, and your YouTube channel is definitely a testament to that. Guys, if you haven't, go and check out the whole catalogue. There's a lot
The,
there.
the hard truth is,
Yep.
each project moves as fast as its slowest person. And when you have something like this with so many people, there's much more likely there's going to be someone slow in there.
It shames me to admit that on a couple of occasions, I'm pretty sure I've been that person. Just with workload and everything.
You
And
have not.
occasionally John comes along and just goes, so those lines, how they coming along? Like, yes, sir, right away, sir.
I can assure you, you have not been the slowest person.
Anyway, we don't.
Yeah, because like I'm at the stage now where I've got a few content. Like Silent How is completely finished. It's uploaded and just wait and release, which is great because then that means, oh, I don't have to focus on anything for the foreseeable future. I can just work on another project.
Yeah, and thanks to YouTube's auto load, it'll upload when it's when it's been told to.
Yeah, all on schedule.
Yeah, which is great.
Which, like you mentioned in the channel, for any people who have stuck around this far ahead, I'll go into a bit more detail because, like I said, if you stuck this far ahead, you deserve to hear all this. I've got the Flash story come out in December. I've been working on stuff which will take me up to July 2021. I'm currently writing
For Cyborg.
a cyborg story. Yep, which will take place after the Flash story. Which once I've got that in the works, like I've still got other projects I need to finish, but I might as well start writing Fallout Season 2.
I look forward to that. Like, you know where to find me on Discord when you're ready to send the script through for that.
Yeah, I've got a few chapters written. Like the way I write is once I've got like the whole concept of an episode, I just write it no matter what. Even if like the dialogue is awful, or what does this character say? Oh, he just says this. I just write it because then I've got something to work.
Yeah.
So once I've got a first draft, even if it's rubbish, I go back there, change things up, fix it up better, add in continuity. So like if something pops up that this person, oh, he needs a gun at the end to shoot this person. Okay, at the beginning, reference he has a gun. I don't bother about descriptions. Like the narrator is literally this person turns around, looks at them, this person walks over there, because descriptions is the last thing I add in.
Right, there you go. Well, I suppose there's nothing worse than staring at a blank page. I reckon that's the hardest part to overcome. Well, on that notion, hopefully we've through our talkings here, we've inspired some listeners out there to put something on their blank page, or maybe go and check out a few other videos and projects of various content.
Just release it. That's the honest advice I can give. Release it, even if it's bad. Then you've got something to build off.
That's it. And if people comment on it, I mean, look, even if they're the most negative thing, we all know what YouTube can be like, but there might be a grain of truth in there that you can work on. So there's always room to improve. And yeah, well, I guess unless there's anything you'd like to add on our way out, John, I guess that concludes episode 1 of the Fallout of Fallout Darkest Hour.
Edward dies, chapter 7.
That's the event we're talking
The
about.
voice actor was a pain to work with.
I am. Yes, I am. Of course I'm bloody a pain to work with. I'm Australian. It's got me bloody beer in it.
No, that's a line from Flash, not Fallout.
Is it? Oh, whatever.
Yeah. Okay, for anyone who doesn't know, I've got Ash here, and he's voicing Captain Boomerang in the Flash story.
I was about to say, I was waiting for you to say Boomerang then. I'd be like, oi! That's Captain Boomerang. It's definitely one of his buttons.
Yes, I know. I wrote the script, okay?
Anyway, Don, fantastic to talk with you.
Yeah.
I'll get this cleaned up
Pleasure
a
talking
little
to
bit,
you.
and I'll send it off to you tomorrow. In the meantime, it is close to 3:30 in the morning. I'm going to go grab some Z's.